Lyft is making headlines by saying that they're vowing all of its vehicles to become electric vehicles by 2030. Now, what does this mean for drivers, and what is this going to actually look like? And is this something that is going to be really feasible? And that's what we're talking about right now. Hey everyone, Chris here from Real Rideshare Stories. If you're new to the channel and you're looking for different things within the rideshare industry, whether it's updates to what's going on, news, tips and tricks for passengers and drivers, or what actually happens on real rideshare rides, start now by hitting that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. Also make sure to check the description below for other helpful information and tips. So Lyft came out and said that they want to have all of their vehicles electric by 2030. Now, is this really feasible? Do they actually have a plan in place? And then what is it going to look like for the millions of drivers who are driving on the Lyft platform? And how are they going to be able to take care of this little change from whatever car they're driving currently to going into an electric vehicle? So we're going to be referencing this article, and this is from The Verge, so a link will be in the description below, so if you want to check out this article, then you can. And it's titled, Lyft vows 100% of its vehicles will be electric by 2030, but the ride-hailing company won't disclose how much it's willing to spend to make it happen. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what they're going to do to try to make that happen by 2030. So we're going to go through the article. I'm also going to share my opinions on things, and I also want you to share your opinion on things when it comes down to it. So you can comment below in the comment section, and we can see exactly what some of the things are, maybe some ideas or anything like that. So Lyft announced a plan on Wednesday to transition to 100% electric or zero emission vehicles by 2030. Now that's a really big goal to have, especially for the millions of people who drive for Lyft. That is going to be a very big goal. But honestly, in theory, I do like the goal. Once my Jeep Grand Cherokee does die, I'm looking at getting an electric vehicle for many different reasons. But, this is something that maybe they could put a little money in my pocket. I guess we'll find out, right? But by working with automakers and rental car companies, as well as the millions of independent contractors who drive for Lyft every day, the ride-hailing company believes it can prevent tens of millions of metric tons of pollutants from entering the atmosphere. And again, that's the biggest thing. Yeah, you can work with automakers, you can work with rental car companies. It's very easy to do stuff like that. But it's going to be a little bit harder of a sale to try to get millions of the independent contracting force to switch over to an electric vehicle or a zero emission vehicle. So you got to provide some incentives there in order for people to do that. So like I said, it'll be pretty interesting to see what they do. Now more than ever, we need to work together to create cleaner, healthier, and more equitable communities. John Zimmer, co-founder and president of Lyft, said in a statement, "Success breeds success. If we do this right, it creates a path for others." And you know what? Yeah, they are trying to do something. They're pretty much the first ones out there beating Uber to the punch, even though Uber has set some things up in prior ways, like providing a little bit more pay when it comes to electric vehicles, but that never really got out of the pilot program. So if they're still doing that, I'm not even sure, because some test communities were only in on that, not all of them. But that is a really big statement to say that you want to have 100% of your driving done by electric or zero emission vehicles. So the news comes as talk of EV mandates for ride-hailing companies is gaining traction among many big US cities, including the entire state of California. California loves to do their crazy ass stuff, so this is no different. So yeah, they're actually not just looking at cities, but also they're looking at statewide. And anytime California does something, New York is probably not far behind. And they've already tried putting certain things into place when it comes down to what's going on in New York City when it comes to ride hailing. So many cities are looking at stuff like this. It's also a time when the view that ride-sharing services are more environmentally friendly than other modes of transportation has been contradicted by a growing body of evidence. Research suggests that the average ride-hailing trip creates about 50% more pollution than the average traditional car trip. Even worse, studies show that over half of all ride-hailing trips in major cities are made by people who would otherwise use cleaner methods of transit to get to their destination. And I gotta say, some of the studies I've read and seen, and it makes sense because right off the bat, instead of going to the driveway or going where you are and just driving from point A to drop off or pick up to drop off or whatever it might be, that driver has to drive upwards of maybe 10, 15 or so minutes to get to the pickup before they can even go to the destination. So there's a lot more travel when it comes down to it. So then it goes on to the path to an all-electric fleet won't be easy. The company will first focus on low-hanging fruit like its Express Drive rental car program that allows those who don't own a car to become Lyft drivers. Lyft says it will strive to make EVs available at the same or lower weekly rental price as comparable gasoline vehicles by 2023 in at least 10 of the largest markets, according to a white paper the company released on Wednesday. Now, again, yeah, you can work with rental companies and have those at least available for people. But unfortunately, the rental car program isn't necessarily the best thing because of how you have to pay for it. And a lot of drivers are realizing through this pandemic, when all of this demand dried up, they were still stuck with paying the car rental and had to usually give it up at that point. So sometimes car rental isn't necessarily the best, but if you need to do it in order to drive or to make some sort of income, then it is an option that you have. So yeah, doing an EV vehicle by 2023 will be a good thing, at least in 10% of the markets. Or I'm sorry, in 10 of the largest markets. According to regulatory findings, Lyft has tens of thousands of cars available to drivers in 30 cities across the U.S. for short-term rental. The company says in those, its Express Drive program have earned more than $1 billion since its launch in 2016. But lower payouts and onerous requirements about the number of trips has made the Express Drive a tough sell for many drivers, according to a 2019 story. And yeah, that's pretty much what I just said. It says getting to the millions of people who drive for Lyft to switch to electric vehicles will arguably be the hardest part of Lyft's plan. Lyft drivers are classified as independent contractors, and many use their personal cars to drive for not just one, but several gig economy companies. In 2018, Uber explored providing cash incentives to some North American-based drivers to switch to electric vehicles, but it never expanded the program beyond the original pilot phase. So yeah, that's what I said earlier as well too. But that's the biggest hurdle you're going to have, trying to get all of these people to switch over. So what are you going to do for that? Lyft said it will organize demand site interest in EVs and negotiate with auto manufacturers for group discounts for drivers using the Lyft platform. The company also claims it can influence automakers to increase the selection and supply of affordable long-range EVs and support the development of EVs tailored for ride-sharing. Indeed, many automakers are planning to release the entire electrified lineups in a bid to address climate change and comply with regulations in Europe and China requiring decarbonization. Now, that right there says a lot. First, they're saying that the company claims it can influence automakers to increase the selection and supply of affordable long-range EVs and support the development of EVs tailored for ride-sharing. But many automakers are already doing either zero-emission vehicles or electric vehicles that will be rolling out in the next few years. So several car manufacturers are already doing that. Lyft probably doesn't have that much pull when it comes to automakers and the decisions they're making. They're just going along with what automakers are doing. So maybe it's the automakers that really have a hand in how Lyft operates, because then they can say, well, we'll give you a little bit of a kickback. That's always a possibility. That's pure speculation. Don't quote me on that. If somebody finds out information about that, always comment below. But Lyft says it will advocate for the adoption of similar regulations in the U.S. despite the federal government's recent moves to allow automakers to manufacture more polluting vehicles. The company said it will lobby for aggressive zero-emission vehicle policies like mandates, tax rebates, charging infrastructure expansion. So that's some good things, because those are a couple of things that needs to happen in order to help soften what it might cost for an average person to have to buy an electric vehicle to continue maybe driving with Lyft. Through these efforts, Lyft hopes to reduce the cost of EVs, improve charging, and develop special promotions, thus making electric vehicles more attractive and more affordable for drivers. By aggregating the collective demand of the driver community, we can help drivers transition to EVs over time in a way that saves drivers money, the company said in a blog post for drivers. Now, I would like that because, like I said, I do want to get an electric vehicle. And if I can get a little bit better of a deal being a Lyft driver, I'm probably going to enjoy that. Now, the only thing is, this is a decision that I made prior to this. I've been talking about either trying to get a Tesla or maybe even Ford, because Ford is stepping up to the plate now with their EVs. So in the next few years, after the Jeep has driven into the ground and can't be driven no more, that's when I'm actually looking at getting an electric vehicle. Hopefully, there's going to be a lot more choices out at that time. But for years, Lyft has been cultivating an image for itself as a company committed to environmental sustainability. But despite these efforts, the overwhelming majority of trips that take place on both Uber and Lyft's platforms are in gas-burning vehicles, i.e. my Jeep Grand Cherokee. But it still does pretty good gas mileage when it comes down to it compared to its counterpart of a few years ago. So the companies have tried promoting pooled rides, but customers have shown a reluctance to share their trips and are likely to struggle even more in an era of COVID-19. And also the fact that they have suspended pooled and shared rides for the foreseeable future and will probably likely be for at least another year or so, if not longer. And it may never come back at all because a lot of drivers don't like it either. Their efforts to better connect to mass transit have been slow and piecemeal at best, and their bike and scooter sharing services are subject to local regulations and market conditions. As such, can be unreliable, especially in northern climates like my area, where part of the year you have a lot of snow on the ground. So it's going to be very hard for bikes and scooters to even get around, let alone be available at that point. So it says, then Lyft wants its latest efforts to be seen as its most comprehensive yet. The company is partnering with the Environmental Defense Fund and the Climate Group, and it collected support quotations from a dozen environmental luminaries and policymakers, including Representative Frank Pallone and Colorado Governor Jared Polis. A valuable way to gauge how committed Lyft is to the effort is by assessing how much capital the company is willing to expend, especially since the company has gone public and is under pressure from investors to become profitable. But the company declined to disclose how much money it would be spending to electrify its entire fleet, and the transition to EVs is baked into our operating costs, a spokesperson said. That is going to be pretty interesting when they say right here, the transitions to EVs is baked into the operating costs. So maybe they've been planning for something like this for a little while, maybe even before they had their IPO. So who knows how long this has actually been going on for. So again, it is going to be pretty interesting to see exactly what Lyft is going to try to do when it comes to the millions of independent contractors who own their own vehicles. Will they put something in place that mandates this in order to be a driver or continue driving? Will they allow grandfathering in like some other vehicles when they've made changes to some of their platforms, like they had 2017 or newer in Florida for a little while to try to prevent drivers from getting into the platform? So there's a lot of different things. Then also, what types of incentives are they going to offer and allow for? Are they going to provide a higher mileage? Are they going to give you money up front to pay for it? Will they give you money to pay monthly payment? What is it going to look like? I'm going to be interested to know and see exactly what it's going to be looking like. And if you're interested, I'll continue to make some updates as they may come available for this, because it may be something that all drivers may have to face. And because this hasn't said anything about self-driving vehicles, again, it makes me believe that self-driving vehicles aren't necessarily going to be here even a 10-year stretch from now. So it's going to be a lot of effort when it comes down to it. And because this whole pandemic has happened, a lot of their focus, both Uber and Lyft's, has gone away from autonomous vehicles, and it may go away for a little bit longer because as they're trying to get back to their core business. Now, what are your thoughts on all this? Do you like or do you want an electric vehicle? Do you want some sort of incentive? Do you see any incentives that Lyft may be providing? Comment below and let me know your thoughts. Now that's the end of this video. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell for notifications so you'll be notified every time a new video is uploaded. Also, make sure to check the description below for other helpful information and tips. And as always, never drink and drive. Always tip your drivers, your delivery drivers, and your shoppers. And we'll see you next time.